Assalamualaikum. My name is Urooba Faheem, and as you all know, I am a neurologist and epileptologist. I'm currently located at Salem Health in Oregon, um, and the SOAP process is something that is very near and dear to me. So here we are talking about SOAP for ERAS 2023. Um, I'd like to start by taking a little trip down memory lane. Um, I think, for those who know me, know that I have been through this process myself. Um, and so again, I think there's that component which makes it even more relatable to me. Of course, I feel very ancient saying this, but this was several years ago. And so I think we're coming up at about 10 years actually now. And looking at things and how things have worked out, I think a lot of people who don't know me that well would not think that I had to face all of this to get here, but it makes it more worthwhile. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. So when I applied for residency, the first time I applied, I was aware that my scores were not up to the mark at the time. In my day, we still had the percentile, which, the 99th percentile was, um, thought to be at par with getting into a good program or a higher tier program. And unfortunately, I did not meet that mark. Um, nor did I make up for it in step two. So, so that was my flaw, I would say, my big flaw in my application, that I didn't have that 99. Having said that, though, I did have some research. I was very focused towards my goal, which was getting into neurology and epilepsy specifically. So I did what I had to. I was, but I didn't expect to get, knowing what my scores were, I did not expect to get a whole lot of interviews. And I didn't. I actually just got one interview the first year that I applied. Um, and that was a very well-renowned neurology program up in Arizona. Um, and it was an advanced program, which means that you have to match separately for prelim and for advanced. And advanced is more for specialized programs like radiology, dermatology, neurology, anesthesia, those kind of things. I think ophthalmology has it too. And back in the day, I say back in the day, but when I was applying, there were actually more advanced programs than there were categorical. So, most neurology programs involved a double match with a prelim as well as the advanced. So you had to do a double match and you had to, match into both programs. Unfortunately, that year when I applied, I only got one interview from an advanced program, very well known. It would have been a dream program. And I knew for a fact that even though they were calling me on such short notice, because of course during that time, it was pre-COVID time, so we could still go in person and check the place out and do in-person interviews, get to know the program and have them get to know us. Um, it was on very short notice in February. I remember distinctly that I received a phone call asking if I was available. I was in Toronto at the time, so I booked a very expensive flight, went out to Phoenix, interviewed at the program, didn't really expect much, but, I did my best because that's all that I could do. Um, Everybody else there was either an American graduate or they, did not have visa issues. I did. I required a J1 visa. And so there was that sort of hurdle as well to cross. And I did ask them, when I interviewed with them, that you have never matched an IMG before, somebody who requires a visa, like what are my chances, because I was very upfront about what my situation was like or what I was like on paper. Um, and they said, well, if they had called you, it seemed like a very sort of generic response. If they've called you, then you're 50% there, which is true. If you make it to the interview, you're halfway there. And so I shouldn't worry and yada yada. Anywho, I came back. I believe the following week, it was on the 15th of February that it was rank order list submission day. I went ahead, I only had one program, so I went ahead and ranked that. I didn't even have a prelim program to link it up with, so I did what I could. And I went about my day. And then came match day. So, all throughout, of course, I was trying to be as hopeful and optimistic as I could, but also prepared for the worst. But you know what? We underestimate the worst sometimes because we think, oh my God, it's going to be not matching. But I'll tell you what, partially matching is probably the worst thing that can happen. Or I say that now, looking back at my journey. But what happened was, by the grace of God, for some stroke of luck, I happened to match into that program, that one little program that I interviewed at, but it was a partial match. So I didn't have a prelim program that I could secure. And I had matched into this advanced neurology program, but I still needed something for my first year, which is the intern year. So yeah, and it's really hard to deal with that because it's hard to explain to people back home or in Pakistan, what a partial match is. Not everybody understands it. So it's definitely tricky. And so, or even your parents and your family, because I mean, ya to match hota hai ya nahi hota, you're not really in the middle somewhere. But I was right in the middle. And so, yeah, so that happened. And well, I tried to participate in SOAP and I did, and I wasn't very lucky. I kept looking for positions. मुझसे कहा गया था कि, so I'm also Canadian, and so शायद Canadians को visa जो है वो थोड़ी आसानी से मिल जाता है, and we don't normally encounter those issues. So, मुझसे कहा गया था कि nearing May and June, when the new interns are coming in, and if they can't come in because of visa problems, then all these positions open up. So, you may be able to find something at the time. And so, yeah, I did all of that. I went through it. During that time frame, obviously, when you're so focused on trying to find an off-cycle position, you don't really have time to take step 3 or study, or so I mean, there wasn't really an addition to my CV, because I couldn't add anything to it. I was too busy. Like, literally every single day my goal was to assess and see if some position had popped up somewhere in the US and whether they could accommodate me. Long story short, it did not work out. I also happened to, I was looking for research at the time, and I happened to stumble upon a stroke research position, like a postdoc kind of position. And so it was neurology, it was paid, it sounded wonderful. It was at Mass General Hospital, the dream. But I had to turn it down because I was still obligated by this contract of mine. So, I mean, legally, I was still bound by this advanced program. And mind you, this program was not helpful at all in trying to find a position for me. So yeah, I kept looking. I had to turn that position down. It was one of the hardest things I've done. But I guess, as luck would have it, eventually I had to waive myself out of that advanced position because I was unable to secure a spot. And so now I was back at square one, a year late, a year past graduation, further from graduation rather, and with no real additions on my CV. And what do I do now? So like I said, it was duas and luck and what I call, God's miracle. MGH was still looking for that position, and they reached out to me and were very interested in hiring me. And so, yeah, I ended up taking that spot. My boss was kind enough to let me apply. a month later for the September, application season for the upcoming ERAS cycle. And so, yeah, I applied. This time I only applied at categorical spots. Um, I didn't want to put myself through the whole advanced debacle again. So I only applied to a handful of programs that were categorical. I ended up getting 4 interviews this time. And I matched eventually. So, there's the eye, there's the Magar, Allah ka shukar hai, it happened. It was great. I've now completed my residency and my fellowship at the University of Arizona, and now I'm, working as an attending neurologist here at Salem Health. So yeah, it's been quite the journey. But that is why I believe in miracles. And that is why I say that the road doesn't stop if you keep trying. So, having said that, for you guys now participating in SOAP, I want you to go onto this website and make note of it. They have actually done a great job of consolidating, frequently asked questions, the whole process really of how SOAP is, what we need to do, how we should prepare for it. So I think it's going to answer a lot of things for you guys. Some things that I want you to focus on, which you should have already done, given the fact that it's, a couple of weeks down the line, is research unfilled programs, make your own lists, try to prepare. A lot of times, all these unfilled program slots are accessible after ERAS is over, or people create their own lists and publish them in various student research forums and things like that. So try to consolidate that information and make your own list. Try to have individualized personal statements available if you're going to be applying to more than one program. For instance, if you're going to be applying for internal medicine, family medicine, you could potentially use the same personal statement. But if you're going to be applying to, let's say, psychiatry or, then family medicine, and then you're also dabbling in neurology, then it should be very focused. It's important to try to find your contacts now. And even now, I think it's a little bit late. You should have done this a few months ago when the whole cycle started. And remember, you have to choose wisely to, where you're going to apply as an international medical graduate. Make sure you have match a resident account and compare the information that's available with what you have on there. Just some basic tidbits, have your phone, computer, cell phone charged and ready to go. Clear your schedule because this is going to be intense. And of course, for those of us who are in Pakistan or outside North America with the time difference, it can be brutal because for you guys, it's going to be at nighttime. And so this whole process is going to run, in the middle of the night. You might have to interview in the middle of the night. So make sure you clear that week up for yourselves. The most important thing is make sure you're eligible because, if you're partially matched, you will only have access to advanced programs if you've matched into the prelim but not the advanced, and vice versa. So if you've matched into the advanced, you'll only have access to the prelims. If you haven't matched at all, then you're going to have access to everything. It is highly suggested that you use up all your applications on Monday itself to ensure that you're in the first lot of applications received. It is a first come, first serve. So jitni upar aapki application hogi, utni jaldi usko review kiya jayega, ya, you're at a better chance of being noticed because they're getting thousands of applications during that time. And so the eligibility thing, if you apply to ERAS, you should be eligible if you did not receive any interviews, if you don't have anything to rank. If for some reason you did not participate in ERAS and didn't apply to any programs, you can participate in SOAP by paying the $99 fee, I believe it is, to become eligible. So, I would encourage you to do that. Make sure that the way to check is by going on to NRMP and making sure that, you fit the bill. This is something that I want you to familiarize yourselves with. It is the breakdown of what they mean with certain codes. For instance, categorical is a C, preliminary is P, advanced is A, things like that. Fellowship programs are not part of SOAP at all, so that doesn't apply to us. But for residency programs, the reason why this is important is because this code right here and the letter next to it will tell you if it is a categorical program that you're applying to, or if it's a prelim or an advanced. So for instance, the same program at National Medical Center for internal medicine could be a 140A, and that's an advanced program, or it could be a 140P, and that is still internal medicine, but it's only the prelim. So just something to be aware of. And like I said, all residency candidates will need to be registered with NRMP by the rank order list deadline in order to be eligible for SOAP. Please don't contact anyone during SOAP. That includes people that you know, programs that you know. Don't show up in person. Don't make the mistake of sending the wrong information. It reflects really badly. It comes off as non-professional. Please don't do that. Or at the same time, and we'll talk about this when we get into the actual SOAP cycles and the rounds where they extend offers and you have a time frame to accept, please wait for the round to conclude. Don't hurry. Take a minute to think. I know it's almost like we're in a state of desperation, especially now as things have become even harder and harder for us international medical graduates. But just breathe and hopefully it'll be okay. So as far as the schedule is concerned for this year, so for 2023, it all starts on March 13th. 10 a.m. is when applicants will learn if they have matched, inshallah, or not. And if you have not, unfortunately, that is when SOAP begins for you. So what happens is you can start preparing your applications at 11 a.m. You cannot communicate with programs, like I said, until they initiate contact with you. Before that, you can't. It is a violation. I cannot stress this enough. There have been plenty of cases where people have violated this, or they've had somebody else reach out on their behalf thinking that it would actually help them. It has backfired and they have been barred from the next match and the next SOAP, and it may even extend for more than a year. So I mean, this is just, you don't want to sabotage your career over something like this. And I know it's hard. It's especially if you have a contact somewhere. It is very hard. But you have to be absolutely sure that whoever it is that you're trusting, you have to be sure that they are not going to somehow, cause you to get into more trouble. And so I tend to have a more conservative approach. I think it's just best to back off and follow the rules. So yeah, so that starts on the 13th. On March 14th is when programs actually start creating their own list. They start narrowing down who they want to interview. Most interviews are through the telephone or Zoom now. So like I said, with the Pakistan time difference, you guys have to be up and ready. And so of course, light jati hai, of course, bijli ke masle hain, but try to be as prepared as you can, okay? Make sure that your information is updated, make sure they have the correct phone number with the area code and the country code and all of that stuff, okay? So they will continue to review their applications up until the 16th. And that is when the first SOAP round begins at 8 a.m. And so things are a little bit different now compared to my time. There would be 3 separate days for SOAP to, have its rounds. Now it's all happening on the same day. So every few hours you are going to receive offers, and it's going to be a new round. And so that starts on the 16th at 8. You will get offers. You'll get this little flashing thing on your screen indicating whether you've had an offer or whether, somebody's interested. And then you have some time. You have about 2 to 3 hours, I believe, to accept or reject. And that's basically round 1. Then round two starts at 11:55, so about 3.5 hours later. Again, the programs will modify their lists, and they will try to determine, if there is a change that they need to make. They may start extending offers again. So, this process is going to continue for 4 rounds on that day, and eventually end at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that day. And so by then, if you have not received an offer, or you haven't, um, accepted a position, basically now SOAP is done and nothing more can happen after the 16th. On the 17th is actual match day, when people find out where they've matched. Of course, this wouldn't really apply to those who are in SOAP because they will already know. And so from that point onwards, you are able to contact programs that still have unfilled, unmatched positions. And I think this is going to be available till May 1st. And so, yeah, that is where, till that point, programs that were part of ERAS, but not, but those that did not fill their positions are still going to be available. There are also programs that never participated in ERAS to begin with, or NRMP to begin with, and so they will also continue to be available. So yeah, that's kind of